I'm going to talk to you about driving alerts and actions on your data, and this is the seventh experience that we have in Fabric. I'll come back to that we call Data Activator. And as you have seen all the sessions throughout yesterday and today, we want to thank the sponsors, because if it wasn't for the sponsors, then yeah, we probably wouldn't be here, or we would be paying a lot more for the tickets. So I will be going through three things here on the agenda: a little bit about me, who I am, why I'm here, and then talk about how we can actually make data more actionable and what we actually do when we do that. And the big part is what is Data Activator, and I will be doing a lot of demos in the end as well. So about me, I joined Microsoft in I've worked with data since '99, so I've had quite a history working both with building data warehousing and BI solutions. Joined Microsoft in 2014. Worked 7.5 years at Microsoft Denmark selling Power BI, and then I was lucky to join when I joined in September 21, the Power BI CAT team, which was renamed to Fabric CAT team a year ago when we launched Fabric. So today I work with customers in the Nordics, and actually also work with customers here in Poland and the rest of Eastern Europe. So how do we make data more actionable? I'll have a few examples here. So how do we actually use data today? There's probably still a lot of people who use spreadsheets like this, get data from somewhere, look at the data, and then need to drive some actions out of that. If you are a little more advanced on Excel, then you may be using something like this, paginated reports or reporting services. You could even be more advanced and use Power BI, Power BI reports, Power BI dashboards. Here are a lot of card visuals. You could also use some nice charts. And if you are, I don't know if you should call it an advanced Power BI user, but if you're using the dashboard functionality in Power BI today, then you actually have the capability of using the alerting mechanism. And this has been in Power BI dashboards for many years, and it's still there and it's still supported. So it is a good way to actually have alerting on your data, but it's very minimal what you can do in here. As you can see on this slide, you can put in a condition on a visual, say if it's above or below a threshold, then it will trigger an alert. We do have the option to integrate this alerting to Power Automate, but this alerting where you can only say above or below something doesn't give you all you need. So what do we actually want to do? When we drive actions from our data, we actually go through 3 steps. And the first one is we monitor. We look at what data do we have, and that can be done by a machine. It could be done by yourself. And then when you look at this data, then you're detecting something. And this something could be data is an anomaly detection. Something is going good, something is going bad, or something is just as it expected to be. But when you detect something that is not normal, then you would like to act on it. And this is the 3 steps that we'll be talking more about that we can actually do in an automated way with Data Activator. So if we look at this example from before, my very plain Excel sheet, there's a lot of data in here. And if you are an accountant or something, you would look at all the rows and see, okay, something is not as it should be here down and in row 18. Because we can actually see when we look at the numbers that units sold is significantly smaller than in the other rows. So we detect that units sold is lower than expected, and then we have to do something. And this do something could be call the sales manager in this region and tell him to sell more, get an explanation why the number is lower. But you can imagine if you have to go through something like this, either an Excel sheet or a Power BI report on a daily basis, that will take quite a long time. And you may be doing it today, or the business you're working in. There will be people doing it every day, but it's still a time-consuming task, and that is something that you should look into automating instead. So a few examples of what we have heard from customers, what their requirements have been from a data warehouse solution where they have collected data from a lot of different source systems and actually need to drive alert on top of that. One example is that if it's finance, they have their finance data warehouse and they would like to be able to get an alert when some invoices are overdue. They may be able to do that in their ERP system today, but once they have extracted that data from the ERP system, then they have lost that capability in their ERP system, so they need another mechanism to do that. It can also be manufacturing. So if you promise to deliver something next week and you know today, based on the numbers you have, that your shipment is going to be delayed, well, that would be nice to be able to proactively alert the recipients of your goods that we will actually be delaying your shipment. And the last example here is more real-time from retail. So if you go into a supermarket, you go and buy milk, and you want to have milk that is fresh and not too hot. So you would like to be able to detect if your freezers or refrigerators is in the right temperature interval, and if it's not, then you should be able to get alert and warnings so someone can actually fix it. So how can you do this today? I already talked a little bit about it. So the manual way, which it's probably done today and will probably be done for many years going forward, is to have people like us look at the reports, look at the number, and then go through these 3 steps: monitor, detect, and act. It's not going to work in the long run if you have a lot of data and you need to do a lot of action. So it's pretty hard to scale. Then what you could do as well, if you could develop your own solution, you could have some developers program a detecting action alerting solution and use that on your data. It will work, but it's normally very expensive to build such solutions, and it's not very flexible and not very agile. So if you need to change the rules, then you need to go back to the developers and they need to change it. So that's going to be expensive, and it's also going to be hard to scale for IT resources. So what you actually want to do is you would like to have a no-code solution where a business analyst, someone who knows about data, knows what alerts that we need to drive, can actually set up the rules and then get all the alerts that they need. And the last part here, that's of course why we have built Data Activator and how that is working today. So a few examples of what we see, how this alerting can be used. So I have a small example here, 4 examples with the same data. And one is, this is what we can also do in the alerts in Power BI today. So if a value is greater than a threshold, in this case, alert me when the temperature exceeds 32 degrees, then I get an alert. So this data that is coming in here is the red dotted line here. That is when the temperature is above 32 degrees. So I get quite a high number of alerts here, which is maybe what I need. But if my data is coming in on a 5 minutes interval, then I will be getting, maybe 10 alerts every hour. So moving from a human being perspective and looking at this line, maybe not a very complex thing to solve, but if you only want to get an alert when it crosses above a threshold, so when the temperature becomes more than 32 degrees, then you would like to have an alert. And the same data coming in here every 5 minutes, but you can see here from this chart here that we will get significantly fewer alerts because we only send an alert every time it goes above, and then when it goes below 32 degrees again, then we can send another alert. If you want to do this today, then you would probably have to build something pretty complex logic in some custom code. The third example here becomes even more advanced. So this says that if it crosses above and it stays above for a time interval. So in this case, if it crosses above 32 degrees and stays there for 15 minutes, then we would like to get an alert. And again, the exact same data coming in here. And in this case, we'll only get 2 notifications because in the first time here, it was staying above 15 or above 32 degrees for less than 15 minutes. So we don't care about that. But the second time it crosses above 32 degrees, it stays for more than 15 minutes. And in that case, we would like to get an alert. And then it happens again a second time. And the fourth and last example here is that if it crosses above and stays above for 3 times in an hour, then you can imagine here that same data coming in, and we see that it crosses above 3 times in an hour here, so we only get 1 alert. And all these 4 examples is something that we can do with Data Activator today without writing a single line of code. And there are also more examples, and we will come back to that. Good. And if you have questions, then feel free to raise your hand and I'll be happy to take them. So this brings me to what is Data Activator. And as you heard in Chris's keynote yesterday, Fabric is like a Happy Meal. So Fabric is Data Activator is the very last part here. So you can call it like the dessert, the thing that you really want to use as well and looking forward to using, because Data Activator cannot really be used until you have some data that you can work on. And Data Activator is the 7th experience or workload or whatever we call these things in Fabric today. And it's also important for me to emphasize that Data Activator is the experience that are still in a public preview. So it's not fully released yet, but you can use it, and all the things that I'm going to show you today is available as long as you have a Fabric capacity where you can run it from. So, as I said, Data Activator is this no-code solution. So it's all about having your systems of intelligence, where you have all your data, and then your systems of actions. And this hole in the middle that has been missing in the Microsoft stack, and other vendors have not had it either, that is where we put in Data Activator. So you as a business analyst who are very familiar with the data you're working on, familiar with the business requirements, you can just plug in Data Activator on all the data you have, and then you can close this loop by driving automated actions on your data and then get it back to your systems of intelligence. So this is going to be my last slide before I do demo. The way Data Activator works today is that it works on one-leg data, which is partly true. But it works on Power BI semantic models, and it works on Synapse Real-Time Analytics event streams. And I'm going to show both of you both options for you. The reason I say it's not fully true that it's one leg, because every Power BI model will support Data Activator. So whether you have an imported model, a direct query model, or a direct lake model, then Data Activator will work on those models. And that also means that you can't have Data Activator using on your on-premises data if you use a gateway to load it into a model in Power BI. So once you have the data, then we have Data Activator, where you have your models, that is your input data. You define some rules, and then you set up some triggers, and then we can output something. And as it says here, it also works with real-time streaming. That is our event streams coming in. So you can actually have data coming in every second, and then Data Activator will look at the data that is coming in every second, and then it can react on that if you like. And today, we have three outputs for Data Activator. You can output in an email, in a Teams message, or you can activate a Power Automate flow. And we will also look at all three. And these three dots here means that we are working on expanding it to more output and also more input sources. But this is what's available today in public preview. And I assume most of you know, if not all know, Power Automate. And that actually means that you have, well, not unlimited options for output, but you have a lot of options using Power Automate. And that takes me to the demo. And my first part of the demo here is data from London bicycle hire, where there is an API, and there is actually sample data available in event stream today that you can go home and play with yourself, and I will show you the whole setup. So from this API, it's streaming data into Fabric, and then we will try to make some actions on top of that. So the first thing we will do is we will take some real-time data from these docking stations, and then we will monitor the docking stations across London, and then we would like to set up an alert if the number of docking stations has too few bikes or too many. So I think I need to do this. I hope the resolution is still okay. So now I am in Fabric in a workspace, and I don't know, has all of you in here been in Fabric already? Yes, no, almost. So what's important to know is when you go into Fabric, we have these different experiences. So depending on the experience you're in, then you have different options in the default new menu here. So I'm in the Data Activator, and this will give me all these experiences, and I will start by creating an event stream. If you are in the Power BI experience, do that. Go into the same workspace, then you will see Power BI in here. But don't worry, you can create all different type of Fabric items by clicking more options, and that will take you to the whole menu of Fabric items. So I will go to my real-time analytics and create an event stream. And I will call this SQL day. I think I already have one that's called 2024. I don't need these enhanced capabilities, so I'll just click create. So this will create an empty event stream. And if you already have some data that you can stream into to Fabric here, that could be Event Hub data or something, then you can connect that in your new source here. So you can take Azure Event Hub, Azure IoT data, some custom app, or what I'm going to do here is I'll take some sample data. And this sample data, we'll call this input here, it now has this bicycle data that from the London bike API, and it also has some yellow taxi data and some stock market data. But for playing around with Reflex or Data Activator, Data Activator is creating reflex items. That's why I call it reflex. Then the bicycle data is good. So I add this. And now it's adding and basically starting streaming data into my event stream here. And then I need to add a destination. And this destination can be a custom app, it can be a lakehouse, it can be a KQL database, or it can be Reflex. And the set Data Activator, that's the name of the product or the experience, but you don't have Data Activator items, you have Reflex items. So when I click Reflex here, I have to give it a name. So we call it SQL day bike here. Oh. Then I have to select a workspace. And now I have to select either an existing reflex item or create a new. So I will create a new. Good. Click add. And then in a few seconds, the data will start streaming into to this reflex item. So the important part to note here is that I can get a data preview, and it will take a few seconds to get started. So I have yeah, of course it failed. That's great. But I have a backup reflex item that I can use. But once you start doing this, you have to be a little patient because it needs to start the processing. So I will go into my workspace, and under my reflex items folder, I have created this SQL Day 2024. And in here, I have the exact same data streaming in. And what you will see in a second or two, this table up here, that is the new data that is streaming in. And every time new data is arriving, you will see it flashing with green rows. And the chart down here, I created it this morning. So that is showing me the number of events per hour, as it says. So if I would like to get a more narrow interval, say last hour, then I can change the filter here, and then I will see the last hour. So this is my data streaming in, and when I click on this information icon up here, I can actually see the some more details about the data streaming in here. And since it's streaming data, then data is arriving depending on when it arrives from my event stream. And in order to use this now, I am in the data part of my reflex item, and in order to work with the data, I need to go into to the design mode. But if I go into the design mode now, then everything is empty because I haven't created anything I can work on. And when you work with an event stream, you have to do all the work yourself. As you'll see when I create an alert from Power BI, then Data Activator is doing some of the work for you. But what I need to do here is, based on this data that I have up here, most of the columns here are something that is coming from my event stream. There are also some system-generated columns that you can look at. But I need to have some identification of the data that is streaming in. And in this case, it's going to be my bike point ID, which is basically a unique identifier for all of the docking stations. So I can click on these three dots, and then I can create a new object. I can call this docking station. And then by default, it will take me to the design mode. Because once I have created this object, then I actually have some data that I can start working on. So I click create. And now I will see the same data in a little different view rolling into to my object here in the design mode. So this is my event data, which is good to look at. I can see some of the details. In this case, this is just the object ID because I haven't any attributes assigned to it. So what I need to do in here now is, following my slide here, now I created my model, and now I need to set up some rules and create a trigger. So I create a new trigger, and this trigger is now untitled, so I can call this not enough bikes. Let's just call that. And you can see that it says up here that it's showing 5 out of 120 IDs. So I have this data coming in is from 120 different docking stations. But if I needed to look at all 120, then I would not be able to get the full overview. So I can select the IDs that I want. And Data Activator has selected 5 for me. I can also, again, in here say, okay, do I want to see the last hour of data, last 15 minutes, or how much data do I want to see? So let's just say last 15 minutes. And now I created this trigger, and now I need to define what do I actually want to look at. And there are 2 ways to get the data in here. One is to select my data. And I can either use an existing property if I have a property, or I can select something directly from this event stream. So what I would like to look at is number of bikes. So I navigate here and number of bikes. And when I click this, then I will see the number of bikes for each of these 4 docking stations the last 15 minutes. And if let's hope that there are some changes here. Yeah, so here the last hour we can see that number of bikes has actually changed in some of these docking stations. So now I have my data in here. Now I'm monitoring number of bikes, and you can also see new numbers coming in all the time. Then I have to do my detection, so setting up my alert, saying when do I want something to happen. So what I want to act on here is that when there's not enough bikes in my docking station. So I need to select which type of detection, and there's a common one. So I could say if it's changing, then every time the number of bikes is changing, then I could get an alert, or if it's equal to something or something like that. So this is not relevant for this logic that I need to create in here. I can also have logical, so if it becomes false, becomes true, or is false and true, and this data is also not suited for that. But because I'm looking at number of bikes, then it is this numeric option that is of use to me. And here you can see all the options that I have. So the one that I showed in those 4 examples that I had is that if it becomes less than, so if it becomes less than the value that I define, then I will get an alert. So I will use this in this case, and I will show you some of the other examples a little later. So click less than, and by default here it will say when it becomes less than 0, and each time then I will get an alert. And all the docking station has a number of bikes, so it's not showing me anything. But if I click here saying if it becomes less than, let's say 13, I think, then we will see something. So now it's, let me just see, 14. So less than 14 in this case. Good, yeah. So what it's doing now is that it's looking on the historic data that I'm looking at now, so the past hour. So if this trigger had been activated, then I would have received an alert once here for bike point 423. And when we look up here, we can see that at this point it went from 14 to 13. So whenever you define some rules in here, you will actually see how often would this trigger have happened. If I, instead of saying become less than and saying that is less than, and then let's say 12, then you will see that I will have received much more alerts. And in this case, all of the purple one here would generate an alert every time. So that's the bottom one, and the green one here would alert me, I don't know, 10 times or so. So when you define your rules up here, in here, then you can actually see what would have happened if I had done this. As you saw in my examples, there are many ways to work with this. So you can say each time, or you can say that if it happened a number of times, and then let's say 2 times the last hour or something, and then I would get the number of alerts that where it detects this. Good. So now I defined my alert, and the last thing I need to do is select an action, act on this. And we have 3 options, as you saw. I can send an email, and when I send an email directly from Data Activator, I can send emails to people in my organization. So I cannot add an email address to someone outside my organization. If I need to send it to someone outside my organization, I will need to use Power Automate. And in here, I can send it to me, to a distribution list, to other people, I can put in a topic here. So I could say not enough bikes. Then I can create a headline, and this will be for the auto-generated email. And right now I cannot add anything else because I haven't created any properties. So if I would like to add in my subject saying I would like to see not enough bikes, and then actually say, let's say there are, and then let's say X bikes. So if I would like to get the number of bikes here, then I would need to create a property that I can use as the output. So let's just create a couple of properties here. So I will save this. If I'm not saving it, it will prompt me to save it, and then I create a property. And this one will be number of bikes. And here I have to select from my stream coming in number of bikes. I save this. And let's just create one more property here so I can also tell which neighborhood this is actually about. So I'll take neighborhood, and then I could create properties for all I have in here. Then going back to my trigger and back to the email, what I can do now is that this asterisk here, I can click on this little icon here on the right side, and then I can actually add the different properties. So here I can say number of bikes, and then I can say in, and then it can be neighborhood. Then I save it, and then I send a test alert. And I hope this works. I just need to open this Outlook here. So what's important when you create a reflex item for event stream is that I create everything here, and now it looks good, and I believe that I will start getting emails whenever my whenever there's less than 12 bikes 3 times in an hour. And then you close it, and then you go home, and then the next morning you haven't received a single email. And the reason is that doing this, this trigger has not been started. So it's very important that you start the trigger before you actually see the action happening. So if I click start, then it will actually start looking at the data coming in now and then sending emails. So again, when we come back to the Power BI in a second, then you will see that everything has been made ready for me and the trigger has been started. But when you do it in this way, then you have to create everything or manually start it in order for this reflex item to work. And if I go into my mail, then hopefully, I got this email, and of course we can discuss whether this is a nice looking email, but this is the auto-generated email that we get from Data Activator. If you would like to have it more customized, then again you would need to use Power Automate. So here. So the next thing I would do is I will go back to my I have more data from this from these bike data, and I have a Power BI report. So I have reports, and then I have this report here. So this is telling me for each neighborhood I see the occupancy in percent, and that is something that I could also use for a reflex item. So if in this case my scenario is that I would like to be alerted when there are too few bikes or there are too many bikes, because if there are too few bikes, there's not maybe too few bikes to actually get some, and if there are too many bikes, then it may be hard to return the bikes that you have been using. And in here you can select a different neighborhood, and then you can see that in each neighborhood we have different streets. So this is basically just the data that is coming in. And when you are in Power BI, then you may have noticed that we now have this set alert in the report when you are in reading view. And when I click on this, it will by default open this Data Activator pane out here. and then I can start creating a reflex item from here. In Power BI, we support, I think we support almost all visuals today, but in this particular report, you will say that we have a line chart here, and then we have a slicer over here. And slicers, they don't have any data, so they are not of any use for reflex or for data activator, and that's why it's not supported. So this is the single visual I have in here. And what is important when you go in and do things in Power BI is that the input to my reflex item that I'm creating now, that is basically a DAX statement against my semantic model. So that is the equivalent to the data that is streaming in. And I have selected a particular neighborhood over here, and that is going to be my fixed filter for this DAX statement. So when you work with Power BI, then it's worth clicking here, say show applied filters. So I can actually see that this is the neighborhood strand, and then for this demo, I just have 3 hours of data. So this would not work in real life. But these filters and slicers, they are being fixed. So once I've created the reflex item in a second, I cannot change that. If I need to change the filtering, then I need to go back to my Power BI report and change it. And then when I create the reflex item in here, I have the option to select a measure. And in this visual, I only have one measure, so that's easy. And then I can select a few operators. We don't have the full library of operators in here, but once the reflex item has been created, then I can go back, or I will go back into the reflex editor and then change something. So I can just keep it saying if it changes, and then we will change it in a second. And now I can also decide what I want to do in here. Do I want to send an email, or do I want to send a message in Teams? So let's do a Teams message in this case. And then we have save options. So it will it has selected a workspace and a reflex item. And if I just want to continue using the one that I already created, that was called SQL Date 2024, then I'll select this. That means that I will get an extra input in that reflex item. So I click create, and then keep my fingers crossed that it's working now. Then I will be able to click up here to go to the reflex here. So view alert. And you will see here that now I have my docking stations that we created before, and then I have this new object that is called street. If I go to my data, then you will see here that I now have 2 events coming in, my streaming that we created before, and then my occupancy. And what's important to know about the occupancy from our Power BI report, as I said, this is basically the DAX statement that is being sent to the semantic model. And the way it works today is that the refresh rate is every hour. So you will, or Data Activator will query your semantic model once an hour, and the time of the hour that it will query it is the time that I created this reflex item. So this may change in the future. If you have been looking at Data Activator 6 months ago, then you actually have the option to change this refresh rate yourself, but today it's every hour, so that's also important to know. So I go to design mode and go to my street. Then you can see here that Data Activator has now been nice to me, that it's right here, that it created 2 properties, occupancy, which is the percentage, and then the street. So I could create more properties if I had more data coming in, but I have these 2 properties that are ready to use. I don't have to create them manually. So my trigger that I defined was that if it changes, my scenario was that I would like to get alerted if there are too few bikes or too many bikes. And in that case, if I go into the numeric, then we have quite a range of options. And we have this one that says exit range. So when I select this, then I define what is my lower boundary and what is my upper boundary. I could also do the other one saying enters range, but that's not what I want to do in here. But there will probably be some business scenarios in your organizations where that could be of relevance. So I click exit range, and then I say if there's less than 20, or if there's above 80. Well, then I will refresh, or I'll get alert, and again it's taking 5 out of the 10 IDs, so I'm not sure if I actually have one over here and looking at the last 30 days. So let's look at the last 4 hours. And it's important to tell you as well, so this is the design mode, as I said before. When this is running, which it is right now because it's coming from Power BI, then it will look at all 10 IDs. So the Teams message that I defined is that it has actually been kind enough to already add the street here, and then it says occupancy changes. I could change this to saying occupancy is, and then I can add my other property again, and I can save this, and then I can send a test alert, and if everything works, then I should see a Teams message coming up in here. Yeah, there it came. And I know this is not nice formatted, but that's how I formatted my semantic model. But this is the kind of notification that you will get in Teams. Good. So now you've seen how I can work with this bike data and how I can create a Teams message and email. And I've also told you that I can create a Power Automate action. So I will also show you how you can do that. And for that purpose, I will use another report. So I will use this one. So this report has 3 visuals, table visual and 2 line visual line charts that all support Data Activator. So when I click on Set Alert, then it will select a random one. I can also select another one, or if I know that I will be using this table, then I can click on these 3 dots, and then I can click Set Alert. So what's special about this table visual is that in here I actually have 2 measures, and then I have 2 attributes. So in here I have to select, do I want to use the measure total observations, or do I want to use the measure total amount? I can only use one measure as it is today. So I will keep the total observations, and again, this is the same as you saw before. It can be changes, or it can become greater, whatever. That's not relevant for this demo. So let's just keep it as changes. And now I want to create a Power Automate action, but that is not available in here, which is of course a shame. But that's something that I need to define in my reflex item. So I will need to select send an email or a Teams message, and then I need to select where it should be. So let's see if this SQL Day reflex works. And again, this will create my input as a DAX statement, but this experience will work the exact same way for a streaming data coming in. So in order to create a custom action, which is the same as Power Automate, then I need to create my custom action. And I do that by going up to custom actions and then say create. And this is where I start building it, so I can create I can say this is a SQL Day Power Automate action. Then I can add some input fields. So if I have something coming from a property that I would like to add to something, then I can add this in here, and here I will call this custom input, and I can add as many fields as I like. And once I'm happy with the input fields I have and my name, then I need to copy this connection string. And that is how I'm gonna combine my reflex item and my Power Automate flow. And then I need to go into Power Automate, so create Power Automate flow. And I don't know if you work a lot with Power Automate. I don't. And I'm not a big fan of this new designer, so I always turn it off. I'm probably going to be forced to use a new designer at some point, but for now I'm using the old one. Don't change the habits here. And here I paste in my connection string to this reflex item. And what I want to do for this demo is I have a SharePoint list. I already created a few entries here, and the action that I want to do is when a new item or when my trigger is being triggered, then I would like to insert a new row in here. So in this Power Automate flow, I will say create item. And as I said, this is standard Power Automate. So whatever you can do in Power Automate, you can do with Power Automate for Reflex here as well. So create item, and my site address, that's this team, and then my list name is Data Activator Demo. And I have a few columns in here. So the first one is my title. So we'll call this one SQL Day 2024 Final Session. And then I have this Data Activator input. So I created this input that's called custom action. And in order to use that, then I need to use this code here. This is, if you have worked with Power Automate, then this may be familiar to you. This is also documented. But you need to use this trigger body, custom property, and then this custom input. That is the name of your custom input, and if I remember and if I did it correctly, then I actually called it custom input. So I will copy this, copy here, and then I need to go into expressions. And one of the reasons that I'm not using the new designer is that I don't know how to get into this expression in the new designer. So if someone knows, please tell me. So I paste it in here and click OK. And then I also have a column here, or an input here that is total observations. And the funny thing is that all the properties that I have defined in my reflex item, I can use the exact same code here. So I copy this and create this in here. So did I not copy? Oh, come on. Okay. Oh, maybe it's just was a line break. Yeah. So so all the properties that you have defined, you can reference them in this way. Okay. And then the last thing, just to prove that it's actually happening now, I will use a UTC now timestamp and add it in here. And then I click save. And once it has been saved, again, this is an ordinary Power Automate flow. So so I can go back in here and see the run history, and nothing has been running yet. And when I go back to my reflex, then it will recognize that I have now created it. It says congratulations, and then I can click done. So now in my act, I now have the option to, I don't know why that's two, but I'll select one of them. That's interesting. So my custom input can be whatever I type in here. So I already did said hello world from Data Activator, and then additional input can be my some of my properties. But I don't need these because I already referenced them in when I created my my Power Automate flow. So I save this, and I can send a test alert, and then we should see in here that it has now run successfully. And then going to my SharePoint list, it will probably not have the total number of observations right now because it takes a minute or two before it starts getting the actual numbers. But it should have added a new row here. So SQL day final session and yeah, the UTC time, which is now. So if I keep sending test alerts, then in say in a minute or two, it will actually generate a total observation as well. Yeah, you have to trust me. And what's important, once you have created this custom action, this Power Automate, then if I go in now and say that I would like to create a new trigger, then I can use that in this reflex or this trigger as well. If I add new new data input in here, if I was streaming some data in, or then I could, I actually have some streaming data in here, so that was the one that I initially created, so let's just do that quickly. Here, then I can also use this Power Automate flow for this new event, as long as it's in the same reflex item. If I create a new reflex item, then I get a new ID, and then I will need to create new Power Automate flow. Good. Yeah, I think I will go back to my slides real quick. So just to highlight some of the key points here that I hopefully have told you about is that with Data Activator, you will actually easily be able to drive automatic actions from your data. As again, emphasizing that the low-hanging fruit is probably to go started with your Power BI reports and semantic models, and we do support all semantic models and all sources there. You can define some pretty complex alerting conditions without writing code, and if you are a business user, then you may in your head have a lot of these complex codes or complex conditions that you go look at every day when you go through the reports. Today we support event streams and Power BI. You can have actions as emails, Teams, or Power Automate flows. And next step, we have not announced when we will GA Power Automate, and I don't have any dates to share, unfortunately, but we are working hard on it. We have new things being announced at the blog post, and there's also a dedicated Data Activator in the community. So if you want to know more, have questions, then ask in there. And I still have 7 more minutes, and I can also show you a little bit more demo, but I don't know if there's any questions. Yeah. So if the number you put in can be dynamic, so if I go in here, so I'll go this, just want to make sure. So you want to have these numbers dynamic. Oh, sorry. Come on. But come on. You see my screen now. So you would like to have these numbers dynamic. Yeah. So today you cannot have them dynamic, but we're working on making them dynamic in a way that the input, if the input contains these values, then you will be able to use them as well. So similar to how I created those properties in the output. So it is something we have heard a lot, and yeah, so it is something that's coming. Other questions? Pricing. Yeah. So data activator is a fabric item. So it is consuming capacity units. I'm actually not sure if it's available today. I think it is, but we haven't finalized the pricing. But it will be, be consuming capacity units, and based on how often that you query your data and so on, it's So it's using capacity. Good. If there are no more questions, I will just give you one more thing here while I'm in this demo. So if you needed to have different thresholds today until we actually make it available so that you can get it dynamically. So if for this data coming in here, if I had different neighborhoods and I wanted different different thresholds, then I can create multiple triggers on the same input data, and then I can create filters here. So if I know, so if I said here that this particular rule only applies to the street that is called, that's equal to, and then we will just do Craven Street, then this trigger would only trigger for Craven Street in this case. And then I know it would be much better if you could do it dynamically, but today it's still possible to have different triggers on the same data set by creating multiple triggers, and you can create basically as many as you like. So that is a way to work around today. But you have to go in here and change the values manually. Okay, but if there's no other questions, I was going to say find me in the hallways, but now the conference is ending in half an hour. But I will still be here when when the final session is done. So so I'll say thanks for coming by, and I hope you had a great conference.